What is going on, everybody? Aaron Smith here with another episode of Forward Gettysburg. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel for more great Gettysburg content. Thank you all so much for the support already. So I'm coming to you today from the Wheatfield, probably one of the scenes of some of the most confusing, complicated, complex fighting in the entire Battle of Gettysburg. This is going to be the first part in a series about the fighting at the Wheatfield. I want to break it down into separate sections because I think so much happened here that just to describe it in one video wouldn't do it any justice. Today I'm going to talk about the 17th Maine and their brave stand that they had here at this Stonewall directly to my right. I'm coming at you from the south of the Wheatfield. Of course, to the north of me is the Stony Hill. Off this direction is going to be the Rose Farm, and behind the camera is going to be the Wheatfield Road, just to orient you just a little bit to where we are. Let's talk a little bit about the 17th Maine. July 2nd, 1863. Early afternoon, the 17th Maine, they're part of Régis de Trobriand's brigade under Birney's division under the 3rd Corps, and they're actually in Emmitsburg, Maryland. They're going to be guarding some of the supply wagons and supplies down there in Emmitsburg. They're actually left behind on orders of General Dan Sickles. Also, Dan Sickles is going to order his entire 3rd Corps forward from his position where he originally was. There were Cemetery Ridge, doesn't really become a ridge anymore, and then he was supposed to have his left flank resting on the top of Little Round Top, but he doesn't like that position, so he's going to move his entire corps, about 9,000 to 10,000 men, forward, and he's going to occupy the Peach Orchard, the Wheatfield, and Devil's Den, and he's actually going to occupy some ground going down the Emmitsburg Pike. He's going to be about 3/4 of a mile ahead of the 2nd Corps, which was supposed to be on his right flank. That's that area right kind of where the Pennsylvania Monument is, just to give those of you who have been here before a general idea. So Dan Sickles goes against his orders from General Meade, moves his troops forward. General Birney, the divisional commander, realizes that this part of the line is too thin, so now they're bringing Trobriand's brigade up from Emmitsburg. Those men in the 17th Maine, when they were at Emmitsburg, they were just about to rest a little bit. They had been marching for the last few days, and they really wanted some hot coffee. They had just started making their fires to get some of that hot coffee, but before they're able to get their coffee, they're ordered to march toward Gettysburg. They're going to arrive here around 3 o'clock, shortly after 3 o'clock, somewhere in that area, and luckily they just missed the Confederates getting into position around the left flank. Longstreet's attack is going to happen on this left flank, and Longstreet's attack on July 2nd is going to fire off an echelon. So the troop positions that day: on this left portion of Sickles Salient, we're going to have Ward's brigade resting on Devil's Den. And the far left of the Union line at that time is going to be the 4th Maine and Smith's 4th New York Independent Battery. Then we're going to have Trobriand's brigade, and a lot of his troops aren't going to be in the Wheatfield just yet, but they're going to be resting on the Stony Hill or Stony Top, whatever you want to call it, there where the Loop is, where the Irish Brigade Monument is. We're going to have Graham's brigade resting up in the Peach Orchard there, right at the salient. Longstreet's attack fires off. Robertson's brigade of Texans and Arkansans, they're going to smash into Devil's Den. And they're going to be further pressed by Benning's Georgians. So now Ward's brigade is in trouble there at Devil's Den. That's not a super great defensive spot, but it's also not super advantageous to the Confederates either because it's very rocky terrain. So it's going to be some pretty intense fighting happening here to the 17th Maine's left. The 17th Maine, seeing troops moving through these woods, they're going to be ordered to this stone wall here. And as they come, they're going to pour an enfilading fire into the 3rd Arkansas as they're moving to attack these positions here. And they're also going to fire an enfilading fire into some of the Georgian troops as well. As they're approaching this stone wall, Winslow's battery directly behind them is going to start to open up fire. Winslow's battery is going to be posted on a small little ridge, the highest point in the Wheatfield. And the reason they're firing is they're now seeing Ty Anderson's Georgians coming through these woods down from the Rose Farm. Now we're in trouble. This spot is heating up, As the Mainers come and take this stone wall, Lieutenant Charles Verrill, he's going to describe the action as the bullets were whizzing already. So this is becoming a very hot position for those men from Maine. We have troops attacking this direction. We have troops coming from the Rose Farm down through the Rose Woods, making a beeline for this spot right here. Verrill is going to describe the stone wall as just a common old-fashioned 30-inch stone fence. But given how hot the fighting was getting at that moment, he said it was the best stone wall the 17th Maine ever came across in its travels. These men would have been kneeling behind this wall, laying prone behind this wall. This would have been some pretty great cover for them to hold off the attacking Confederates. As they take their positions on the stone wall, they're going to see skirmishers from the 20th Indiana who are posted just forward in these trees here in the Rose Woods. The skirmishers are going to come skedaddling back through the woods and past the 17th Maine, and directly behind the skirmishers is going to be a mass of Confederate troops. The men of the 59th Georgia and the 3rd Arkansas would have made their way through these trees, seen this Wheatfield, but also seen this entire stone wall lined up with Maine men ready to fight them, and vicious fighting would ensue here. The 3rd Arkansas and the 59th Georgia, they were upon the men from Maine, and it's going to be described as, by one soldier, there is a dreadful buzzing of bullets and other missiles, highly suggestive of an obituary notice for a goodly number of Johnny Rebs, and we could see them tumbling around right lively. Wow, what an incredibly vivid description. That's actually pretty amazing. The men from Maine here, they're going to repulse that initial Confederate attack from the Arkansans and the Georgians. However, they're going to reform there just in the woods beyond here. Also, to the right of the flank, Colonel Charles Merrill of the 17th Maine, he's going to realize that there's a Confederate force also organizing to his right. So not only did they repulse an attack to the center, but he realizes there's something going on to his right as well. But the woods over there just happen to be very thick with undergrowth, so this threat isn't upon them just yet, but he senses that the threat is growing and growing. So what he's going to do is he's going to bend his right flank, almost like a refusal, if you will. And he's going to line up company C, H, and K facing south toward the position along the wooden fence, which is directly there behind me. Right about here, the stone wall tapers off, and this wooden fence takes over. Now, this would have been where the 17th Maine refused their right flank with 3 companies. Lieutenant Verrill, once again, he's going to describe, we had scarcely finished this new formation when the dogs of war were let loose again. This time the 8th and the 9th Georgia, 2 regiments, they're going to finally drive through those thick woods, and they're going to attack that fence there where those 3 companies of the 17th Maine are posted. And also along the front, the 11th Alabama is going to attack. So now they're facing attacks from 2 directions. Verrill, he's going to describe, never was the loading and firing of muzzle loaders done more rapidly by the 17th at that time. This is going to be a vicious, vicious fight. We're talking 1 regiment of Union soldiers facing 3 regiments of veteran Georgian soldiers. This is an intense fight here south of the Wheatfield. De Trobriand is going to ride forward to this position, and he's going to quickly realize that the 17th Maine is in danger of being overwhelmed. They're now surrounded on 2 sides by enemy forces. He's going to order the men of the 17th Maine to fall back. They knew as soon as they left it, the Confederates would take it, and they refused to budge off of this stone wall. They beat back several more Confederate attacks, but it's not going to be enough. They're going to realize their ammunition is running low. Eventually, they'll fight off another attack, and they're going to look and see that they only have a handful of cartridges left, and it's going to be a quiet over the battlefield as Johnny Reb regroups in the trees, and a laughter is going to break over the men. They have been through so much together that this quietness on the field is just going to cause them all to break into laughter. Lieutenant Charles Verrill, he is going to describe this as a relieved laughter. He's going to say, "We were simply hilarious." As this quiet is going on, the men are going to realize that Winslow's battery there, the 6 Napoleons up on that ridge in the Wheatfield, they're starting to limber up and fall back. and the men from Maine knew that only meant one thing. There was a break somewhere in the line. To their north at Stony Hill, troops from Tilton and Schweitzer's brigade mistakenly started to pull back and open up a gap in the line here at this part of the field, and Kershaw's South Carolinians were all too happy to fill into that gap, and soon this position was becoming untenable. Troops to the south under Ward, they had been beaten back and they were retreating by the combined assaults of Benning's Georgians and Robertson's Texans and Arkansans. The 17th Maine was alone at this stone wall. Regrettably, they fell back from the stone wall that they had fought so hard over. As soon as they fell back, Anderson's Georgians came through the woods and they took this stone wall. This place where so many of their fellow Mainers have fought and died and fell, now was in the hands of their enemy. Realizing that the situation was not good, General Birney himself is going to ride up and he's going to order forward the 17th Maine, the 5th Michigan, and the 110th Pennsylvania. De Trobriand is going to give that order, and one soldier is going to look at de Trobriand and say, "But we're out of ammunition." And he's going to say, "Then you must hold them with the bayonet." They needed to hold off the Confederates while reinforcements came. Colonel Charles Merrill is going to describe the fighting. He was going to say, "The contest was now of a most deadly character, almost hand to hand, and our loss was very severe." They drove these Confederates back at the bayonet and they fought them hand to hand. Some incredibly vicious, terrible fighting, face to face, toe to toe, countrymen against countrymen. However, the Confederates, they felt more compelled to remain at the stone wall, and as one Mainer described it, the Confederates felt compelled to engage in some target practice. They weren't going to give up this stone wall, bayonet or not. The 17th Maine, exhausted and out of ammunition, they will begin to withdraw from this position with the 5th Michigan and the 110th Pennsylvania as Caldwell's division of the 2nd Corps, with brigades under Kelly, Cross, Zook, and Brooke, come to the field and begin the slaughter in the Wheatfield all over again. Eventually, the men from the 17th Maine will retreat back beyond the Wheatfield Road, and they'll sit down and rest, and they'll start fires, and they'll look around their campfires and realize there was quite a few less men than when they started the day. But nonetheless, being tired, exhausted, covered in black powder and blood, the men of the 17th Maine will finally have their coffee. Thank you guys so much for joining me. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while. This is just going to be the first one in a series discussing some of the complex, vicious, bloody fighting here at the Wheatfield at Gettysburg. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel, and if you get the opportunity, come out and visit the battlefield. It is absolutely gorgeous here in the fall. Big Round Top is popping with colors. You've got to get out here and see for yourself. As always, my name is Aaron Smith for Forward Gettysburg, and I will see you on the next one.